It's a completely different document. This actually says this is not creating an agency relationship. It's not creating an agency relationship, then what good is it?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Zillow offering a 7-day touring agreement for agents. This is kind of, I don't want to say taking the real estate industry by storm, but it's got everyone's attention. And that is something that Zillow is just great at. They are great at capturing the news cycle, capturing attention, and have everyone talking about Zillow. So, Shawn, Thursday, May 2nd. We'll get into that. I want to share with you something that happened. This is non-real estate related.
Cool.
So
all
just
right.
kind of,
I love it.
Bear with me here, YouTubers and podcast listeners. So I'm in the car. We're actually in Knoxville, right? At the bachelor party. I rented a car from the airport through the 5 guys in the back, right? I got, the whole crew in the back of this minivan. We haven't even left the airport property. We're driving around the maze of the airport. My buddy in shotgun rolls down the window, tosses something out of the window. You know what he tosses? A banana peel. Throws a banana peel out the window. And so and as soon as it happened, I almost did a U-turn on this dang highway. Like, what are you doing? You cannot roll down your window and throw an object out. We're going 45 miles an hour down the highway. And so I'm retelling the story like a couple weeks later, and my brother goes, "Oh yeah, I probably would have done the same thing. Oh yeah, it's biodegradable. It's not a big deal." And so now I'm being gaslit into thinking that this is like an acceptable behavior. Where do you stand on throwing things out of a car window on the highway?
It depends.
It depends.
Yeah.
How often are you driving down the highway and you're just chucking things out the window?
Bottles, whatever. Like, if I need to get rid of it, I mean, it's a trash can out there. No, I'm just joking. No, listen to this. So it's funny. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, right? It was a different world. But the thought, I've never thrown a banana peel out of a window, but I have thrown an apple core out of a window into the woods while we were driving. And this, I haven't done it in probably a decade and a half, 2 decades, but I've done it in the past. I will admit that I have thrown biodegradable things out of the window. Now, a banana peel going down the highway just to throw out the window, no, I wouldn't do that. I understand the biodegradable thing.
Sure, I understand it. But I'm just thinking, what are the acceptable items to throw out of a car window?
It's probably, you probably get pulled over.
What
anyways.
are they?
It doesn't matter. No. Yeah,
like,
I think you're right.
Like maybe lint that you get from your ears or your belly button, and you maybe like a booger, right?
Yeah.
I don't think
Are you allowed to throw up out of the window?
Dude, imagine you're in DC and you throw a banana peel out the window.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
No. You're in the city, right? So like people might think it's different.
Well, it's biodegradable.
When you're in the city, or you have a really good point, because it's like, why should it matter where you are? You shouldn't be throwing things out of the window. And there's a place for those things. And how do you know that banana peel didn't have some other effect on it or whatever? I mean, it can, think if you had some sort of tropical plant or some invasive species or something like that, you throw out the window, right? Like, oh, it's just a plant, whatever.
So almost all food is biodegradable, right? So if I just have like a pizza that I don't want, like, do I just throw the pizza out the window? All right. You
have a really good point. No, you're right.
I've taken up enough of the listeners' pod. I'm sure there's going to be like one person listening by now. Drop a comment down below. Are you on team throw anything that's biodegradable, it's automatically okay to throw out the window, or are you on team reasonable?
Yeah.
Let us know.
That's fine.
Shawn, Zillow 7-day touring agreement for agents. So touring agreement's good for 7 days, doesn't include any fees. If the buyer wants additional services from the agent, they would need to work out a separate, more comprehensive agreement. And then any negotiation of compensation should happen after both parties meet and feel ready, says Zillow's Errol Samuelson. Now, obviously, the reason that this is happening is that the NAR settlement says that you have to have a written buyer's agreement before you show houses. Obviously, in Virginia, that has already been in place, but maybe for these other jurisdictions where it's kind of gray area, you didn't really need anything. Zillow is coming up with essentially what it is, a one-pager, and saying, hey, buyer sign here, buyer broker sign here. There's going to be no fees, no monies due. This is a 7-day feeling out period. And then if you want something after 7 days, you can work it out from there. Shawn, what are your thoughts on the 7-day touring agreement?
Yeah, I'm coming from a standpoint of Virginia, and Virginia law, like you said, we have had to have a buyer broker agreement prior to signing or showing any homes. We're supposed to have that signed. So in my eyes, it's kind of a nothing burger, right? I mean, like, okay, you created a document that says that you're going to basically not get paid anything for showing individuals' houses. It's basically binding for 7 days, but there's nothing said on it, So my thing is like, does this really alleviate anything? Does it do anything? Or is it just an advertisement for Zillow to say, hey, we came up with this agreement before the real rules come out of what we've got to do? Because let's face it, come July, there's going to be new rules. NAR is going to say, all right, nationwide, there's probably going to have to do this, right? So this is a good advertisement for Zillow, I think. I think that's really all it is. I don't think the document does anything. I mean, and while I agree with certain aspects of this, when you are first meeting a buyer and they want to see a house, you sign a document and they're going to be like, well, I don't even know you. I don't know you. And yes, maybe you should meet with these people and go through things prior, but let's face it, that's not the way things happen. People call you and they're like, I want to see this house. And you're like, let's go, right? And so a lot of times in the state of Virginia, you have to have a document signed. How are you going to do that? Sometimes you do it property specific. Sometimes you do it for a day, a weekend, however long you can. And hopefully they buy a house in that period. What this is basically doing is saying, hey, we are here to tour. You can use us to tour properties. And it's non-binding. You don't have to pay us anything for this service. We're just going to show you properties. So my thing is, I guess, is Zillow, the company, came up with this document, which is fine. Did they consult with any of their agents about this document prior to actually writing it, right? And I'm assuming that this is something that is signed and they're having their affiliate agents sign. I don't know. Is it just their brokerage? Do they still have a brokerage? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Right?
So no, you brought up a lot of points there. Let me get through them. You said it's not really binding. The only thing binding is that it states that the buyer has not signed another exclusive brokerage agreement with any other agent. So it's saying, all right, you and I were hitched for 7 days. So that's the first thing.
So that means 7 days. Hey, I get to show you properties for 7 days. If you want to see properties for 7 days, I'm showing you. But I have no guarantee of getting paid. That's basically what that's saying.
There's no, you didn't have any guarantee of getting paid if you didn't have a buyer broker agreement in the first place. Correct. And you're out showing houses. It's kind of like the toll road.
Yeah, this is kind of for those states that didn't have anything. This is kind of like the beginning phase of it, I guess.
I was going to say it's kind of like the toll road where it's like you have to pay tolls now. Well, before you didn't have the option to use the road.
Yeah.
Now you have the option. You just need to pay. So kind of similar there. And the next thing you said, is only Zillow allowed to use? No. So Zillow is putting this document out and saying, hey, everyone, use this document. Which brings me to my next point of, Zillow is training the market. This is what they're doing. They're training the market. And right now what they're saying is you don't have to pay anything for your agent to go around and show you properties. Nothing, zero. And so now they're kind of in the lead of telling people that, hey, this is just a one-page document. You don't have to pay anything for the first 7 days. Now, our exclusive brokerage agreement, there's nothing stopping us from just doing an agreement that expires tomorrow. Hey, let's see one house that expires tomorrow. The thing is, it's kind of an intimidating document. Our buyer broker agreement, it's like 3 or 4 pages. There's like lawyer language in there. There's default language in there. There's like money owed language in there. This, on the other hand, it's one page. It's easy to digest. It's not intimidating. It's very easy to get in and out of this agreement, and it's free. But is it a bad thing that Zillow's telling the world that it's $0 for agents to spend their time to go around and show houses?
Yeah, I think it's a bad thing because it's not Zillow that's going to not benefit from this. Zillow's going to benefit from it. The people that aren't going to benefit from it are the agents that are showing the house for nothing, and then they go somewhere, they go elsewhere, or they use a different Zillow agent or, affiliate agent or whatever. Zillow might still get paid for that referral, but that agent might not get anything. And so I think it benefits Zillow. And
well, everyone wants to know what happens if in this 7-day period you tour a house where you're paying your agent $0, and then you find a house that you want to write an offer on.
Nothing.
And
they can go anywhere.
They can go anywhere.
Right? I mean, they didn't sign an agency agreement. This is just a touring agreement. There's nothing binding in this. I don't see anywhere that it says you have to use me for services going forward. This is just a 7-day touring thing. Hey, Matt, show me houses. I want to see every house in this area over the next 7 days. When I'm done with it, I'm going to sign an agency agreement with somebody else. Why is that? Is this document stopping them from doing that? I don't think so.
So this touring agreement is different than a exclusive brokerage agreement.
Yeah, it's a completely different document. This actually says this is not creating an agency relationship. It's not creating an agency relationship, then what good is it? It's only saying, I'm going to show you houses. And so in the state of Virginia, this document is not going to fly. It doesn't mean anything. State of Virginia, you have to have a binding agency agreement as a buyer-broker agreement. So we could pull out some language and say, all right, you owe $0 and whatever the listing's paying me is what I'll take. That would be binding, and you could do it for 7 days, but it has to be on our form. This Zillow form is not going to do us any good, in my opinion.
Purpose of the agreement, paragraph 1C, buyer and broker agree that they are not entering into an agency relationship and buyer is not a client.
There it is.
I mean, if you sign one of these things and then want to write an offer and then the buyer agent is like, well, you got to pay me 2.5%. I mean, they could, click on this 1C and just say, no, I don't.
Yeah.
You're not a client.
That's exactly it. So this is a nothing document. This is doing nothing for agents. It's doing nothing for anybody other than maybe having some clarity of who the buyer is and who they're hopefully going to represent, or who the buyer's agent is and who they're trying to represent. And I think that's maybe the clarity there. But really, this document is nothing. I think it's an advertising ploy for Zillow. Really.
Well, I think it's great. I think it's a great advertising ploy.
And
I think
that's what they're really good at.
Zillow had to do something because, like you said, you go on Zillow, you click, tour house, agents, start to call you, you start to call agents. You want to see the house right then and there. So the agent's going to say, hey, I got to send over this 1-page agreement so I can show you the house, and then I'll meet you there at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, hey, let me walk you through the 4 or 5 pages of this exclusive right to represent agreement, and then we can go.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't understand what it does. You know what I mean? It doesn't do anything.
Well,
There's
it's
no
a
legally
loophole. It's a loophole.
Yeah. There's nothing there. And so I just don't think it's worth anything, to be honest. And maybe in states, again, like that don't have the buyer broker, it's a step forward. It's a step in the right direction because they're actually signing something saying, hey, I represent you, the buyer, or I'm going to try to represent you, the buyer. But really what this does is say, hey, my services for showing you houses is completely free. I'll just do it on my own and, hey, take up my time and you're not going to pay me. What I think should happen is be like, hey, this is what we charge per house or something like that. But the problem is these sites are built on just showing people at a whim and agents running their butt off as soon as that call comes in. And believe me, I know how this is. When you get a call, you have to answer. If you don't answer, you're to the bottom of the list. So agents are running to try to get this business. They're trying to get up on the ranks of Zillow and whatever other site that they're going to use. And if you don't answer quickly and you don't show that house and you don't show positivity in your production, then you're not going to get the calls anymore. You're not going to get the leads. So what is this doing? It's making agents say, hey, right now my services are free. I'll show you as many houses as you want. And at the end of the 7 days, if you want to go and do something else, or in the day 2, if you want to go sign an agency agreement with somebody else that you like, okay, I have no force. I have no way of protecting myself. So really, in my opinion, what you're doing is you're putting agents' necks out there and you're saying, Zillow doesn't really care about its agents. We don't care if you're going to get paid or not. We care about our bottom dollar and what we're going to get, and we're still going to get a referral agreement if you use this guy, or this person. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's doing anything for agents. It's doing everything for Zillow.
Zillow wants to make it as easy as possible for agents to tour buyers to listings. And if the legal requirement is a written agreement, they're going to figure out a way to make it as easy as possible for agent to have a signed agreement with a random phone call.
Yeah.
And this is the way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you could just say, write it on a piece of paper and say, I will show you houses for 7 days, sign. I mean, that's basically all that's saying. You know, it's just not a good document, in my opinion. It's not a binding agreement. There's nothing to it.
What would it be a better document?
An agency relationship. If I'm going to show you a house, this is an agency relationship. You and I am your buyer broker. I am representing you in this transaction. If I'm showing you a house, I will represent you in the purchase of this house. And it could be for this house specifically. It could be for the houses I'm showing you over this weekend. That is a binding agreement so that it's protecting me and you. And that way we understand the legality of it. We understand who's representing who on these purchases. Because if I'm just a touring agent and I'm going through the property, who am I representing? It's not saying that I represent you in this transaction. You could be working for the listing agent. Who knows? So I don't think it does anything good. You should have an agency relationship. It should be for 1 day. It should be property specific. It could be for whatever. I agree with them in the fact that it is a really hard thing to do to just say, hey, sign this document. I'm your agent for the next 2 months. I don't even know you, dude, right? Like there has to be a relationship and there has to be some sort of path forward. But I don't think this really does anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, you bring up some good points. I'm curious to see how the market's going to respond to paying zero or no fee involved. And then if the person wants to write on a listing that has a zero buyer agent compensation and they want a buyer representation, then they have to pay out 2.5%. Like it's kind of setting the bar so low that there may be a sticker shock or maybe some uneasiness about the transaction if that is to be the
there's
case.
No mention of any payment or anything of the sort. So people are going to see houses thinking that they're not going to have to pay anything. And then all of a sudden you're going to hit them with an agency agreement. There's no description of payment, you know? So then they're going to be hit. Oh, you want to write a contract? Okay. Now you have to pay me X percent, or you have to pay me this much money. And I think it's a harder conversation to have at that point. Why not have it at the front when people are actually saying they want to learn about this transaction? They want to learn what their costs are going to be. At this point, when they're seeing houses, they have no idea what their cost is going to be. And the other problem is, again, I don't agree with this whole rule that came down that's going to be, put down on us, but we don't even know based on a listing what we're going to get paid. So we have to fortify ourselves as agents to make sure that we're making money and getting paid for our services. I'm not going to go show houses with this document. It does nothing for me. And I'll stay at home with my kids. Like right now, I have a buyer agreement signed and I'm running for these people. And I could have, my daughter has practice, whatever. I'm not going to miss that for this, right? And I don't think a lot of agents will. But there's always that chance that by signing this, you can make that relationship better. And that's what they're banking on. They're banking on you as an agent to make the relationship better, then to explain and then sign an agency relationship agreement later.
So my next question, which you just answered, was safe to say you're not going to be using this document. So how do you work with potential buyers that are interested in your services, but maybe get a little spooked by signing a long-term agency relationship agreement? What sorts of things can you do to quell that anxiety?
Well, one is sign for the day. Does that do anything? Maybe, because it binds you for those properties that you've seen. And so if you've got a list of properties that you're showing that day, and then you list those properties in that agency agreement, that's a binding agreement for those things. And you put in that agreement that it's good for at least 30 days after you show that property. So they can't go to somebody else and say, hey, Matt, can you write this contract? Well, I've got a contract. I've got a signed buyer agreement that says that the houses I'm showing you over these dates, I'm representing you. And that's that. So that's number one. Number two, it's going to be difficult. There are going to be agencies out there, just like Zillow just made this and said, hey, my services are free. Other agents are going to say, no, it's $150 for the first door and $50 per door after that. Maybe that's the thing per day. Maybe I don't know. We're going to see a lot of hybrids, I think, in this to get paid because, let's face it, our necks are out there as agents and our time is out there. Our livelihood is out there. And, there's no skin in the game for some of these big companies because they're getting the money anyways. They're getting the leads. They've already bought and sold us. They've bought and sold our information. They get our information for free. they're not paying us. They're not paying us for the information that we're giving them. They are signed up to NAR. So why don't we, as going forward, only brokerages get that information, no websites. You're not a real estate agent. You're not an agency, and you shouldn't be allowed to. That should be the next hammer that falls. If you're going to hammer me on a commission rule that's bogus, then I think there should be more outreach to stop non-agent websites from being able to hold that information.
Don't come for Shawn's neck. Don't come for Shawn's money. He will defend himself.
I've been doing this long enough, my friend, and I work my butt off to get to where I am, and I'm not going to have somebody take it from me. That's it.
Well, let us know your thoughts and comments below on the Zillow 7-day touring agreement. We all know Shawn's thoughts and comments. He's made that perfectly clear. Well, Shawn, switching gears now, I saw you at an open house in Westover.
Yes, Matt.
Beautiful house. I believe it was listed for $899. I'm so curious. So I had set, again, the over-under line, and the property's now under contract. I don't know what it went under contract for. I set the line, I believe, at $920. $920 was my line. So, Shawn, why don't you walk us through the house? Needed a little bit of work around the edges. You did a lot to it to get it to where it was to begin with. What was that process like? You get multiple offers, you have a deadline. How did everything go?
Yeah, first of all, I spent a month to get it to the position that it was. And my thing as a real estate agent is I always want to make something as pretty as possible, as good looking as possible, so that I can get the best dollar out of this for my clients, the best contract that I can out of my clients. So I took a month to make it pretty. And that was a lot of paint, a lot more paint. The colors in there were insane. They were red with just very colorful homes. So I toned it down, recarpeted. So that was the first thing. Pricing wise, there was some work to be done in that house. Original windows. And so I saw that as, okay, well, we have to price this right and maybe a little bit below market just because of the work that needs to be done. And some people were like, oh my gosh, that's such a good price. Like, this is crazy. But then you go in the house and you're like, okay, now I get a sense of why it's priced where it is, because it does need some TLC. It's a great house, amazing location. So anything under $900,000 in Arlington is, single family wise, it's just going to get a ton of attention. So we had, including 4 pre-inspections, I had 41 agent showings on that house. And that was and really that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a couple Sundays.
Do you tell your sellers like, hey, 1 out of every 7 showings is going to be an offer or anything like that?
No, I don't do that because I don't know the statistics, and it's funny because by the activity, you would think I would have gotten like 15 offers, right? But you just never know. And so the feedback I was getting, some felt like it was too much work. Others were like, I love this property. The feedback in the open houses was like, man, this place I love it. I love it. I had so many of those people come through and say, neighbors are like, wow, this place looks great now. So the open houses, Saturday, I did a Saturday and Sunday open houses, 2 hours each, 1 to 3 and 1 to 3. And the reason I do that is I condense the time. I want a lot of people in there. I want a lot of action. I had the first day, I had over 30 groups through, not people, groups. So there were a lot of people. The second day was probably another 25 groups. So I had over 50 groups through in 2 days. And
you think these people are actual buyers? You think they're neighbors? No. You think they're just getting started?
They're everything. It's, I met so many neighbors, and that's always my goal. Like I want to meet people. I want to talk to people about the market. I thrive on this stuff. And, the more people I get to meet, the better off it makes me in the future, because I'm going to know more people and my business is going to flourish. And that's part of doing an open house. Number one, you're trying to sell the property and you're trying to sell it for the most value you can. So how are you going to do that? I'm going to drive traffic to that open house. I want to get as many people feeling like, man, this place is awesome, right? And then the second thing is for me to meet people and get new business in the future. And how do you do that? You're talking to people actively, finding out where they live. You're basically on a job interview every time. Every open house is a job interview. And so that's the way I take it. And so driving that traffic and getting the best contract I can is important to me. So we ended up, so Matt, you came on, was it Sunday?
Sunday
You came. So it was a little bit less active, but what were your thoughts on how many people were there?
No, it's a cool house. The downstairs just kept going. The upstairs carpet, you chose like an interesting choice because it was kind of a carpet that maybe you'd feel for like a lower traffic area. I probably would have gone with like a shorter pill. I think that's what it's called. Kitchen needed a little bit of work. Love the layout. Love the backyard area. And I was bumping into people. There were so many people there.
Yeah. So all in all, I ended up getting. I always set a Tuesday noon deadline. I feel like Tuesday, the reason I do that is because I want people enough time first to get through it. If they like it, I want enough time, maybe Sunday, Monday, to do their pre-inspections. Because what does that do? It gives my client a better contract. I don't want a home inspection. I don't want to deal with home inspection items. So that gives them enough time to do the pre-inspection. Hopefully, they like what they see in the home inspection and they don't walk out. And you run that risk of doing that if you allow pre-inspections. But in this instance, I got 5 offers, 4 non-contingent offers, no home inspection, no appraisal, no finance contingency. That's what I want. And basically, once you sign that deal, it's done.
Was it all cash or no?
It was not all cash, no. They still have, they're getting financing, but there's no finance contingency. I received all 5 were conventional financing. I had no cash this time. I did have a varying amount down between 10% to over almost 50%. And I had 1 that was non-owner occupied. 4 were owner occupied and 1 was non-owner occupied.
Well, were they going to rent that out? What were they going to do?
I asked the agent that, and he didn't get back to me in time. But I found out, I think that they were actually buying it for their sons or something for their future. But that it would be rented out for the short term, and they would, it'd be their own. But my client ended up going with one that they felt was the winner in their hearts, in their minds, and in their pocketbook. And sometimes it's not always the highest offer. And that's what you have to understand. Sometimes it's a heart thing. Sometimes it's what they want. And I'm not saying they didn't know who was a family. They didn't know anything like that, right? I don't disclose that stuff. But I think it was, we want this to be somebody a house that somebody's going to love, right? And I think that's what they went with. But you were wrong on your prediction.
Okay, so was it over or under 920?
It was over.
It was over. So I mean, the prediction is like it's going to be in the ball. Would you say it was in the ballpark of 920, yes. Or was the offers just completely above or below that?
So I had one at 917.
917.
And I told them, I called that agent, and she's like, let me know if I'm even in the ballpark. And I let her know. I was like, listen,
what place was she in? Like,
she was in last place.
917 was last place. Okay, so I clearly undershot this one.
I did too. I think I had an expectation in my head, and I will say that 3 offers that one ended up coming up to 930,000, and there were 3 that were basically at that, and then there were 2 that were higher than that.
So there were 3 basically around 930, and then there were 2 that were in a higher category than that.
Correct.
I mean, it's a heck of a house.
Great
usually
location.
You're at like what 1-1 for that neighborhood, that area. Great location. So someone will buy it and do some work to it and live there for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. And the prices in this area just seem to keep going. So I think it's a great investment. Now this is the time to get in. Even though interest rates were higher, that did spook us for a little bit. We're like, man, is this going to slow down the market? But no, it didn't. We were still having a ton of traffic. Now, with all that traffic, I only got 5 offers, which is still good, but
like you had 40 showings. What's 40 divided by
10,
5?
1 out of 8, whatever.
Like 5.
1 out of
1 out of 8. So 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8.
Yeah. So that's not bad. If we want to go into another one, I had another place up in Kingstowne area. It was a 2-level contemporary condo, and it's funny. Like, he's a past client of mine. But he had a management company trying to sell it last year, and with a tenant in it. And I'm like, me as an agent, I'm like, do not sell with a tenant in there. It's the worst thing ever. He was getting like $340,000. They priced it at $360. I think he was getting $340 for it, and then it appraised low, or it was at $350 and it appraised low, whatever. Anyways, that contract ended up falling out. And once it fell out, I was like, Frank, because he was calling me for advice, and I'm like, Frank, I'm not your agent, right? I can't give you this advice. So then once that fell out, he called me and we signed an agreement. And I put money into this. I said, listen, if you give me, I said, how much can you spend? And he's like, $12,000. I said, all right, I'm going to get you new floors in here, new paint. The place was a wreck. The agent or the tenant destroyed it, punched holes in the walls, punched holes in the doors. I put $12,000 into this, made it as pretty as I could get it. Again, had 37 agent showings on it. It took me about a month to get ready.
So that sounds like 4 offers.
6 offers.
6 offers. Okay.
6 offers. And the funny thing is, he was getting $340 before. He put $12,000 into it. He's getting over $390,000 for that property.
Wow.
Yep.
Talk about the ROI on that.
Return on investment. This is what I try to tell people. I'm like, listen, just give me 15 grand, give me 12 grand. It will make a difference. And it typically does. And so that just goes to show you right there how much.
Well, how do you determine when it's just a complete, hey, as is sale versus let's put the money into it?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. There are definitely times where you're just like, listen, this is a teardown. And I just settled one this week where that was the case. And the owners knew that.
You just tell the owners, hey, listen, your house, someone's just going to take a bulldozer to it.
Yeah.
Is that the bedside manner?
They knew it.
They knew.
Right. So that in that instance, I was like, all right, well, listen, why don't we save you some money? I'll just go to builders. I'll get the builders to bid on it, and we'll get you a nice clean contract without paying out a buyer agency commission. That's what we did. We ended up getting them $815,000 tear down just south of Wilson Boulevard.
So like Bluemont, Bonaire.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Well, I mean, yeah, I was off, but I'm certainly not surprised that it went for higher.
Yeah. One other story, though. I was representing a buyer, and these people came in from Boston, and we were looking on the higher end, higher 1 millions to twos, low twos. And we saw a lot of properties. And the funny thing is, you never know when somebody else is looking at a property. And this property had been on for a long time. And it was really good price, but it's closer to a main road, closer to a busier road. But the funny thing is, we were writing the offer, and we had our offer ready. And I just gotten the DocuSign back from my client. And right then the agent texts me before I had even sent him the offer. He said, Shawn, I just got another offer. I'm like,
that's so annoying.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
After all this time, you never know when another one's coming in. So I'm making modifications to the contract, and we send it over. And then it's a back and forth verbally and stuff. And then he's like, oh, Shawn, I have word of getting a third offer. I'm like, dude, so my message is, if you like something, get the offer in. Doesn't matter how long it's been on the market. There's always somebody else looking, and it could be taken out from under you.
How do you know that agent's telling the truth? It's probably sitting on the market for months, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we got another offer.
You don't. You're trusting the fact. But would you take that risk as an agent? Me personally, if I had the ability to screw up a deal by balking, by not, I would not do it. Right. I'm an honest person, and I take everybody as being honest to me in this business. So he could have been totally lying to me, but I don't believe that's the case. And when we were showing it, there were other people showing it as well. So I think it was truthful.
Cool. All right, Shawn, let's move on to in or out. And we are going to stay in Arlington, and we have one of the least expensive non-condo, non-co-op, non-HOA duplexes for sale for $625. Let me introduce you to 3751 South 4 Mile Run Drive in Arlington. It's 2 beds, 2 baths, 884 listed square footage. Actual square footage is about 1260. Fully renovated end unit, 2 bed, 2 bath, corner townhome with 3 levels. Very well maintained, open floor concept. Welcoming front porch, very private back patio, new stainless steel appliances, front load, washer and dryer, beautiful hardwood floors throughout the house, new stainless new steel star steel stair railing. Say that 5 times fast. And a huge backyard where family and friends can enjoy endless cookouts and much more. There is a FHA assumable loan with an interest rate of 3.125 as well. So Shawn, for $625, which is really not that much, you get a non-condo, non-HOA house in Arlington. Are you in or out on South 4 Mile Run Drive?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the comps, but it seems like a good price for Arlington, duplex. I know that we could get those in the 5s maybe a year or 2 years ago, but man, prices have changed. I think anything without an HOA or condo association, no fees like that, and reasonably priced, you gotta jump. You gotta go after it. And 600s in Arlington, yeah, I'm a player. So I would say for those reasons, good location near Shirlington, I'm assuming, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm a buyer. I think I'm gonna buy this one.
Shawn, I'm in as well. So I've sold one of these and I've listed. I sold one of these. It's a couple doors down. Beautiful. You know, it was also move-in ready. I can't remember the price, but there were multiple offers. I think it was in the 5s.
Yeah.
But the property is worth so much more now. What I love about this is it's move-in ready. I mean, it's perfect for a couple, for a family. You could even, live upstairs and then rent out the basement. Why they staged the basement as a conference room, I'll never understand. There's like
so true.
eight chairs around a table.
Just a table. That's it.
It's no one's gonna pretend that this is a large house, right? It's 884 above grade square feet plus 500 down, in the basement. The parking is a little weird because you have like a bunch of cars, like a bunch of row homes, duplexes right next to each other. So parking might be kind of a hassle, but at this price point, you get a non-condo option, you get a non-HOA, and you get walkability, you get bike path, you get. I think they're gonna have no trouble selling this. They're not gonna do the assumable loan because someone's gonna come in here with conventional and scoop this bad boy up this weekend.
I agree, 100%.
So
Good
625. I mean, you don't see 625 for a house. Can we call this a house for a duplex in Arlington too often? So
yeah, jump on it.
Opportunities are out there. Well, that will just about do it for another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you like this. Drop a comment down below. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And for Shawn and myself, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.